In 1975, archaeologists excavating a burial site in the Judean Desert found something unexpected inside a 3,500-year-old tomb. A small alabaster jar, sealed tight, still containing residue. They tested it. Inside was a blend of cinnamon, myrrh, and olive oil, a perfume, sitting in the dark for 35 centuries, waiting. Whoever was buried there went into the afterlife smelling good. And they were not unusual.
The desire to smell good is one of the oldest impulses in human history. Older than money, older than writing, maybe older than civilization itself. And the lengths your ancestors went to, thousands of years before soap, before chemistry, before anything you would recognize, are stranger, more sophisticated, and more human than you might expect. Let's go back to the beginning. The oldest known perfume workshop in the world was discovered on the island of Cyprus in 2005. It covered an area the size of a basketball court. Inside, archaeologists found copper stills, terracotta mixing bowls, and perfume vials. The residue inside those vials contained anise, pine, coriander, bergamot, and lavender. The site dates to roughly 4,000 years ago. This was not a small operation. This was a factory. These people were producing scent at scale, exporting it across the Mediterranean, building an economy out of smell. But that factory was not the beginning either. Go back further to ancient Egypt, and the obsession becomes almost hard to comprehend. The Egyptians had a word for perfume that translated roughly as the scent of the gods. They believed that divine beings smelled extraordinary, and that if you wanted the gods to pay attention to you, smelling good was a reasonable place to start. Temples burned a compound incense called kefi every evening at sundown. The recipe for kefi included at least 16 ingredients: honey, wine, raisins, myrrh, frankincense, and a dozen aromatic resins, all blended together and shaped into small pellets that smoldered slowly through the night. It wasn't just an offering, it was a technology for crossing the distance between humans and whatever was above them. And then there was the woman who understood that scent was power in a more immediate sense. Cleopatra, preparing to meet Mark Antony for the first time, had the sails of her barge soaked in rose water. The story, recorded by Plutarch, says that the wind carried the scent to the shore before her ship even came into view. Antony was waiting on the dock. The smell arrived first. Whether you read that as theater or strategy, the result was the same. She controlled the moment before she was even visible. That is not vanity. That is architecture. Meanwhile, in ancient Mesopotamia, people were doing something that would feel entirely familiar today. They were mixing scented oils and rubbing them into their skin. Clay tablets from around 1200 BCE, written in cuneiform, one of the oldest writing systems on Earth, contain detailed recipes for aromatic blends: cedar, cypress, myrtle, crushed into animal fat. The tablets also record the name of the person responsible for developing these formulas. Her name was Taputi Balatakalam. She is considered by historians to be the world's first named chemist. Not a philosopher, not a warrior, not a king, a perfumer. A woman who spent her life figuring out how to make things smell good, and was considered important enough to be recorded by name 4,000 years ago. Think about that the next time someone calls perfume superficial. The trade that developed around fragrance became one of the most consequential economic forces in the ancient world. Frankincense and myrrh traveled from the Arabian Peninsula across thousands of miles of desert to reach Egypt, Rome, and Greece. Spikenard came from the Himalayas, cinnamon from Sri Lanka. These were not luxury items in the way we understand luxury today. They were strategic resources. The historian Pliny the Elder, writing in 1st century Rome, complained bitterly that Rome's appetite for imported aromatics was bleeding the empire's treasury dry. He estimated that India, Arabia, and China were pulling 100 million sesterces out of Rome every single year, just for smell. Rome didn't care. Romans perfumed everything: their bodies, their clothes, their furniture, their walls, their horses. At lavish banquets, fountains ran with rose water. Guests were showered with flower petals from the ceiling. The Emperor Nero reportedly spent the equivalent of millions of dollars on roses for a single party. And across the world, in places that had no contact with Rome, the same instinct was playing out in different forms. In ancient China, scholars and physicians treated scent as inseparable from medicine. The physician and herbalist Li Shijin, drawing on thousands of years of recorded practice, described hundreds of aromatic plants and their effects on the body and mind. Sachets of dried herbs were carried in the sleeves of robes, held close to the body throughout the day. Incense was burned not just in temples, but in homes, in studies, in sick rooms. The idea that something could smell good and heal you simultaneously was not a coincidence. It was the whole point.
In the Americas, indigenous cultures used copal resin, dried flowers, and smoke in rituals that combined spiritual meaning with something that functioned very much like personal fragrance. In sub-Saharan Africa, aromatic bark and plant oils were worked into skin and hair. In South Asia, sandalwood paste was applied to the body in ways that were simultaneously cosmetic, medicinal, and sacred. Every culture that ever existed developed a relationship with scent. Every single one. And here's the part that makes all of this feel less like history and more like biology. Your sense of smell is the only one of your 5 senses that connects directly to the limbic system, the part of your brain that processes emotion and memory. Every other sense passes through a relay station called the thalamus before reaching the brain's higher functions. Smell bypasses all of that entirely. It goes straight in. This is why a single scent can pull you back to a specific afternoon from 20 years ago with more precision than any photograph. Your brain did not evolve to process smell the way it processes sight or sound. It evolved to react to it immediately, viscerally, before your conscious mind has time to catch up. Your ancestors didn't know any of this, but they felt it. They understood, without words for it, that scent was not just physical. It was psychological. It was social. It was a signal being broadcast to everyone around you, whether you intended it or not. Because here is the other side of this story. The reason humans wanted to smell good in the first place. Body odor is, in evolutionary terms, a form of communication. Research by Dr. Klaus Wiedekind at the University of Bern demonstrated that humans unconsciously prefer the scent of people whose immune system genes differ significantly from their own. In his study, women consistently rated the body odor of genetically dissimilar men as more attractive. Your nose, without asking your permission, is running a compatibility test on every person you get close to. It is looking for a genetic partner whose immune system fills in your gaps. It has been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years, which means that when your ancestors reached for a scented oil or crushed an aromatic herb between their fingers and rubbed it into their skin, they were not just trying to smell pleasant. They were entering into a negotiation with biology, masking one signal, sending another, performing something, attraction, status, cleanliness, power, entirely through chemistry. Cleopatra soaking her sails in rose water was not being theatrical. She was being precise. Today, you spray something from a small glass bottle and walk out the door. The bottle lists notes of bergamot, cedar, and musk. Bergamot has been used in fragrance for at least 500 years. Cedar was burned in Mesopotamian temples 5,000 years ago. Musk, originally derived from a gland of a small Himalayan deer, was one of the most prized ingredients in ancient Persian, Chinese, and Indian perfumery. The names have changed. The molecules are older than any civilization that ever tried to bottle them. That alabaster jar in the Judean Desert, sealed for 35 centuries, someone made it for someone they loved. They chose the ingredients carefully. They wanted that person to carry something beautiful into whatever came next. You do the same thing every morning. You just don't think of it that way, but now you will.